Welcome back everyone to another episode of the Goldbound challenge. It's good to see you all again. I just want to start off by saying a huge thank you to everyone who's been following along the journey so far. The comments, the encouragement, the advice, it genuinely keeps me going through the grind. So, from the bottom of my dwarven heart, thank you. Now, if you missed episode 5, here's a quick recap. Last time, we stripped things back to the basics. No experiments, no side projects, just pure old-fashioned grinding. Copper ore, herbs, and frayed knots. The 3 pillars of the Elwynn gold making circuit. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Big time. By the end of the episode, our total gold had climbed up to 214,702. A huge step up from where we started. We even saw some consistent movement on the auction house. Frayed knot stacks selling nicely. Herbs and ore shifting through the market. And even a few low-ticket transmog pieces finally finding buyers. The gold might not have come in one big jackpot, but it came steady, and that's what matters. By the end, we were sitting at just over 53% of the way towards the WoW token, with nearly 5 full days of playtime inside Elwynn Forest. That's a lot of pickpocketing, mining, and auction posting for this little zone, but it's progress, and that's what this challenge is all about. So here we are, episode 6. The fire's still lit, the grind's still alive, and that WoW token is closer than ever. Let's see if this episode is where Elwynn finally starts to give up its last bits of gold. I'll be honest with you guys, last episode I hit the wall. The grind had started to blur together and Elwynn was beginning to feel less of a home and more like a cage. But after stepping away for a bit and clearing my head, I realised something important. We've actually done really well so far. We've built a foundation. We've turned scraps, junk boxes and copper veins into something that actually resembles progress. So this time, I'm not chasing distractions or gimmicks, no switching professions, no experiments. This is the episode where we dig deep, literally. Remind ourselves that sometimes success isn't about flashy jumps forward, it's about steady, stubborn persistence. Elwynn might have tested my patience, but it hasn't beaten me, not yet. So let's take a deep breath, shake off the dust, and do what we do best. Grind, refine, and inch closer to that first WoW token. One copper vein and frayed knot at a time. Let's make this the turning point, the moment where gold-gated name really starts to mean something. First things first, let's take a look at some of the random greens clogging up our bags. There are some pieces we've been trying to flog on the auction house for what feels like forever now. A few are sold here and there, but nothing worth celebrating, and definitely not enough to justify hanging on to the full collection. So, I've decided it's time to clear the decks a bit. I'm going to sell off all the low value transmog pieces that have been gathering dust, except for the original ones we found way back in the first few episodes. Those pieces feel like part of the gold-gated story at this point. They still haven't sold, sure, but I'm not quite ready to give up on them just yet. If they're still sitting unsold by the time we hit our very first WoW token, then yeah, maybe that'll be the time to let them go and make room for new loot and potential transmog finds in our next zone. For now though, they stay. A little piece of history from where it all began. With those pieces sold out of the way, I emptied the rest of the mailbox, including our full stack of frayed knots that haven't moved yet. I went ahead and sold off all the similar odds and ends too. Low level greens, random potions, food items, all of it. From here on out, anything like that is getting vended immediately. It's just not worth the time or bag space at the moment. Now, with those things tidied up, I relisted our 124 frayed knots from last episode. Unfortunately, the market for these has completely screeched to a halt. What used to be one of our biggest money makers has slowed right down. Still, I'm not ready to give on them just yet. I'll keep relisting whatever I can and keep our fingers crossed. Markets bounce back, and when they do, I want to be ready. A kind subscriber actually left a really helpful comment on one of my recent videos. They mentioned that posting too many of the same item at once can actually hurt your chances of selling, since you end up competing with yourself on the auction house, and honestly, that makes a lot of sense. So, taking that advice on board, I've changed things up. From now on, I'm only listing 1 or 2 of each transmog at a time, and keeping the extras tucked away safely in the bank until they sell. Hopefully, that helps keep our prices stable and maybe even boosts our odds of getting a few more of those pieces to finally move. Big thanks to this commenter for the recommendation. I really appreciate it. So I think it's time we get back to what's always worked, the grind. Ore and herbs have been the backbone of this entire challenge since day one. They always sell, no matter what's happening with the market. They're steady, reliable, and they keep the gold trickling in even when everything else slows down. Frayed knots have been a huge boost for us, sure, but the market's just too unpredictable. People like to buy them all out, flip them for profit, and then out of nowhere, they'll just stop selling entirely for days at a time. It's unstable, and right now, what we need is consistency. So, we're heading back to the basics: mining, gathering, and keeping that grind alive. So, the tracker counter's on, and we're ready to roll. I don't have a set goal for this session just yet. I think I'm just going to keep going until I drop this time. After that burst of motivation for last episode, I'm feeling more determined than ever. So it's time to lock in, throw on some grind music, and just go. I'm skipping the frayed knots for now until the market picks up again, which honestly makes the Elwynn loop a little bit easier. No pickpocketing detours, no inventory clutter, just pure focused efficiency. Mining, herbing, selling, repeating. Back to the basics. Just how it should be, right? As I'm running a loop again, I can't help but notice just how much the economy here in Elwynn has changed since the start of this challenge. When we first kicked this off, everything had value. Copper bolts, frayed knots, even the odd light leather scrap could pull a few gold here and there. It felt like every item that dropped had a purpose, a market, and a buyer waiting somewhere out there to buy it. But now, the gold making options have really started to narrow down. Light leather barely sells at all. Pigments from inscription just don't fetch enough to justify the time. And even those rough copper bolts we crafted back in the early days, their prices have completely tanked. It's wild how much the market shifted, even inside one small zone. Part of that might be just natural market fluctuation, but I think there's something else at play here too. I've started to notice more and more people popping up in Elwynn running similar routes, selling the same items, even farming the same mobs. And honestly, I love seeing that. It means people are giving a challenge a shot themselves, but it also means the supply and demand balance has been completely thrown off. When everyone's farming the same materials and posting my auction house at once, it drives the price straight into the ground. What used to be a hidden gold maker suddenly became oversaturated, and the profits just vanished overnight. It's a small scale crash, right here in Elwynn of course. That's why, even after all this time, ore and herbs have remained the backbone of the challenge. They're simple, reliable, and always sell. Whether you're in Elwynn, the Barrens, or halfway across Azeroth, they don't rely on hype, or trends, or lucky buyers. They're just consistent. And honestly, that's what makes me even more excited for the next zone. Because once we finally unlock it, we'll get access to fresh materials, new mobs, new opportunities, new recipes, and new gold making angles. All of this is waiting just over a border. So while it might look like we're doing the same thing over and over, this is actually just us adapting. We've seen the highs, the crashes, the dried up markets, and the silent mailboxes, all through all of it. And the grind remains the one thing we can control. That's what's keeping this challenge alive, and that's what's going to push us into the next chapter. So yeah, while the Elwynn economy might be in a bit of a weird spot right now, we're not slowing down. The grind doesn't stop just because the markets shift. We adapt, we keep moving, and we find new ways to keep the gold coming in. We're making good progress with the grind at the moment, but we aren't finished yet. We've still got a long road ahead of us, and if there's one thing this challenge has taught me, it's that persistence always pays off in the end. While we carry on with the grind, I wanted to take a quick moment to throw a question your way. Would you guys like to see any other MMO style content on this channel? I've been toying with the idea of doing a few one-off videos where I jump into a different MMO, maybe one I've never played before, and give my honest thoughts after a few hours of gameplay. Sort of a first impressions from a WoW player type of thing. If that's something you'd like to see, let me know in the comments, and maybe drop a few MMOs you'd like me to check out first. Also, for those of you who don't know, I've recently launched a new series alongside Goldgated, the Glory or Death Hardcore Challenge. It's a pure survival series set in classic WoW, where every decision can be my last. It's a ton of fun to record so far, and it's a completely different kind of experience compared to this slow, methodical grind of Goldgated. I'd love to hear what you think of it so far, and on top of that, some of you already know I'm big into Dungeons and Dragons as well. I'm currently playing in a weekly D&D campaign after DMing my own campaign for a good few years, so I've been wondering if you'd like to see any D&D related content too. Maybe character builds, campaign stories, or even one-shot adventures with the community someday. You never know. Let me know what you think down below. I always love hearing your thoughts on how we can expand the Firebeard channel and keep building this world together. Alright, enough talking for now. It's time to get back at what we do best. Pickaxes ready, bags empty, Eyes on the ore and herbs, let's keep this Elwynn loop rolling and see how much progress we can stack up before the day is done. Before diving back into Elwynn, let's make a quick detour to the auction house. A few of our items have expired, some low level transmog pieces and a handful of frayed knots, so I'm going to relist them to make everything active. Nothing flashy, just keeping the wheels turning and our presence in the market consistent. Alright, quick checkpoint. Let's see where we've at so far. Not bad at all. Between the herbs and ore, we've already managed to grind over 6,700 in total. That's some solid progress. And it's definitely keeping our gold ticking upward. You know, it's funny. At times, this grind can feel endless, especially after so many episodes. But when I step back and actually look at the numbers, it's impressive how far we've come just by sticking to the basics. Ore and herbs might not be flashy, but they've been the backbone of this challenge since day one. That said, we're not finished yet. There's still plenty of Elwynn left to work through, and every vein, every plant, and every pocket counts. So let's keep our heads down, stay consistent, and see how much more gold we can squeeze out of this forest before we wrap up today's session. I'm going to put on a Zayu stream for some background motivation, and get the rest of this grind smashed out. Ore and herbs, rinse and repeat. Let's see how much we can stack before we decide to call it a day. Alright, I've locked in for a solid session there, and now it's time to see what we've got ready for the auction house. Wow, that isn't bad at all. A grand total of 15,000 herbs and ore. I have to say, that's a really solid effort if I do say so myself. So, let's get all this posted in the auction house and log off for the night. The plan is to come back tomorrow to hopefully see a nice stack of sales waiting in the inbox. Then, we can finally tally up the totals for this episode and see how much progress we've made towards that first WoW token. Alright, it's a brand new day here in Stormwind. Let's head over to the mailbox and see what's sold overnight. This is always the moment of truth. Did all that grinding actually pay off? Okay, not bad at all. We've got a handful of sales here already, herbs and ore, as to be expected. So let's gather it all up and let's see what our new gold total is. We are now sitting at a grand total of 273,830 gold. That's a solid increase of 15.06% from last episode, which honestly feels great considering the market slowdown we've been dealing with lately. Progress is progress, and gold is gold. Now, before we wrap up, let's take a look at the current WoW token price. This week, it's sitting at 398,857 gold, which is actually a little lower than last time we checked. A bit of a dip, but hey, that only works in our favour. So, with our shiny new 273,830 gold, that means we're currently 68.65% of our way towards breaking the boundaries of Elwynn Forest. We're closing the gap, one herb and one ore at a time. A quick check at the auction house shows that yep, our stack of frayed knots is still sitting there for the most part. These bad boys haven't budged this week unfortunately, and it's the same story with most transmog pieces we've got listed right now. Not much love for the fashion game, yet. A quick look at our slash played also reveals we're sitting at a whopping 6 days and 2 hours into the challenge. That's some serious time mining rocks and sniffing flowers. I genuinely wonder what the playtime is going to look like by the time we finally unlock our next zone. And that, my friends, is where we're going to wrap up episode 5 of the Goldbound challenge. Another huge chunk of progress, another step closer to that shiny WoW token, and eventually the sweet freedom of a brand new zone. Thank you all so much for contributing to supporting this series. Now, I want your quick opinion on something important. Would you also like to see occasional live streams of the grind here on YouTube or Twitch? Just hanging out together, mining, chatting, maybe even doing some Q&A while we chip away at the goal? Or do you prefer sticking to the current bi-weekly episode format so all progress is revealed only inside these videos with no spoilers? Let me know down in the comments. Your feedback shapes how we move forward. In the meantime, don't forget we also have the Glory or Death hardcore series running alongside this challenge if you want even more WoW content to binge on. And if you'd like to support the channel further, we now have a Patreon with some cool perks. like access to the Firebeard Discord hall, deeper community polls, exclusive updates, and having your name etched into the Forge Wall of Thanks at the end of future videos. As always, thank you for watching, thank you for being here, and thank you for keeping this adventure alive. Until then, stay sharp, stay golden, and I'll see you next time.